Let's talk Iran. Look, it's getting worse. The Iranian regime has reportedly now issued nationwide shoot to kill at protesters. The death toll's rising, Kosha. It is getting worse. At what point does the US have to intervene here? Because it almost felt like the US could have shut this down from the beginning, and it hasn't done that yet. How do you see this playing out?
This is a really tricky one because the death toll is rising. It's a very opaque regime, so we never have perfectly transparent information, of course. We would hope that the U.S. president and his team do with better intel assets, but be that as it may, it is getting worse. By the same token, the U.S. president does not really want to get sucked into another quagmire, is the way it's often described in the Middle East, after the failed, what he and his base certainly believe, and the majority of Americans believe, the failed adventurism of the last 25 years with the war on terror. So he's grappling with that. I think he's comfortable with doing surgical strikes, like the 12-day war, or going and capturing Maduro here and there. And even there, he does pay a little bit of a price politically with his base that does not like that because they fear that it's a slippery slope to more interventionism. And I think that's the line he's walking right now. We see the ships moving into that region, signals being put out there. The Ayatollah is reportedly in hiding because he's worried about some such surgical strike at any moment. But then also Trump is being measured that really it is not the U.S.'s job to police the world, as heinous as the atrocities may be in the streets of Iran.
No, look, that is a fair point. But yeah, it's not getting any better over in Iran. They're really desperately fighting over there for their freedoms, that's for sure. Now, look, speaking of wars, the remains of the last Israeli hostage in Gaza have been found and identified. This is Ran Vili. He was killed and taken into the Strip on October 7, 2023. Look, there's no doubt this brings another end to a chapter in this massacre. I guess what happens now is the focal point, Kosha. Does it pave the way for this second phase of the ceasefire to begin?
That is certainly the promise. I think it lifts a little bit of a political price that Prime Minister Netanyahu had paid in terms of why, fairly or not, why it took so long to get all the hostages and the remains out. He can finally punctuate that, put an end to it and close that horrible chapter in his nation's history. And yes, that was the precursor for then opening up the crossing. The Board of Peace met when everybody was gathered in Davos recently, and that is sort of getting off the ground. So all these things are coming into place, and we hope that this is something a little bit new. I think the core and the fundamentals of that region remain, and the danger of the conflicts that have happened throughout time do remain. But if the ceasefire holds and there are new structures in place, like the Board of Peace and this chapter ending, and the U.S. president right now being more stronger than the last one, and all the rest of the factors that go into this, we can hope that we're moving another step in the right direction after a very, very bad few years.
Look, absolutely, and there's no doubt that Donald Trump has made this happen, that we can hopefully close this chapter and move into phase 2 of the ceasefire, and it really is thanks to the US president. I want to end on China. The leadership of Beijing's military is in turmoil. The Chinese Defence Ministry said the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, which controls the armed forces, is under investigation and accused of serious violations of discipline and law. All eyes are really now on Taiwan, Kosha. Where does it leave Taiwan? Does it now de-escalate that threat?
Yes, this was definitely big news. And of course, China is another opaque regime, so it's really hard to know the what and the why. But this person who was removed was aristocratic almost within the party. He was a war vet himself in the China and Vietnam War. I think he stayed something like 7 years past his retirement that he was eligible for. And President Xi personally tapped him to remain 7 years past his retirement and then removed him. So that is definitely shocking news. And he was in charge, as you say, of the Taiwan command. Now we're all reading into this. What does this mean? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows, given the opaque regime. What we do know is that China is moving closer to some sort of reunification strategy or execution of that strategy, whether it's today, whether it's years from now. And I think removing a particular general, as controversial and surprising as it is, doesn't take away from that. They play the long game. They are the strongest that they've ever been, and the U.S. has signaled that it doesn't, again, want to go around policing the world or certainly get involved in a kinetic head-to-head battle against China. without coming out and saying it, Trump has signaled that to Xi and in other forums. So I think all those things bode in the direction of China moving towards that. But again, it's anybody's guess when it may or may not happen.
Yeah, and it was only last week when the ambassador said, basically, if you're not with us, you're against us. So let's see if Australia gets drawn into this. Kosha Gada, thanks for your time as always.